Thank you for this opportunity to share with you a little bit about what we're doing at HHMI and also to learn from all of you. It's been a wonderful day so far for me. So when I became president of HHMI a few years ago, I worked with senior leadership to establish a set of priorities for the next 5 to 10 years at HHMI. And that's what's outlined on this slide. And as you heard a little bit, what is the sort of centerpiece of the focus of HHMI is on discovery science and on the support of discovery scientists. But we know it's not enough to just support and train individual scientists. And what I mean by that is that if we want to maximize the likelihood that our scientists will have great impact and can do their very best work, we also need to address the challenges and opportunities that affect today's research enterprise. And that's what these three pieces of the pie are meant to represent. And so this really speaks to the need for fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what I mean by this is of really listening to diverse voices and creating inclusive and equitable environments. And so HHMI, like many other institutions, have invested a lot in programs to enhance diversity in STEM at all levels. And unfortunately, research shows, and as you've heard today, that these have only been modestly successful. We've learned that this is in part because diversity doesn't drive inclusion. Inclusion drives diversity. And this means that even decades-long efforts have not been more successful because they've failed to also create inclusive and collaborative environments in which individuals can thrive. And so we're committed to focusing our efforts on fixing the environment instead of focusing solely on fixing the student. And so we need to make sure that the environments that our scientists are working in allow them to achieve their maximum potential, that they're inclusive and supportive of scientists from all backgrounds and identities. And we can't do this without driving and supporting change at the institutional level and without positively influencing the behavior of individuals. So today, what I'm going to do is to emphasize the initiatives and elements of our grant programs that are about driving culture change in the life sciences. But before I do that and tell you more about what HHMI is doing, I want to share a little bit of my personal story, which inspires some of the work that I've chosen to focus on at HHMI. And so when I reflect on what allowed me to overcome the barriers that I faced as a woman studying chemistry, and in the environments in which I worked as a young scientist, I think about two things. The first is the impact of my undergraduate experience. So I went to an all-women's college, Smith College, where I was immersed in an intensely accepting and inclusive community. And I loved it for a variety of reasons. For one thing, it gave me the freedom to be myself. But also, when I left Smith, I felt like I could be anything that I wanted to be. And that feeling was empowering. And I was able to carry that sense of empowerment, almost like a fearlessness, with me into graduate school at MIT, where when I started in chemistry, out of a department of more than 30 faculty members, there was a single female faculty member in that department. So that sense of empowerment I had coming out of undergraduate was really critical in graduate school, where I often needed to take a fearless approach to the work I was doing. The second thing I think about that really was influential in my career is not unrelated to the first thing, and that is that I had great mentors. My mentors played an important role in my career. They supported me. They enabled me to get to where I am today. Most of those were actually men. And what was important was that they recognized what I needed, and they helped create environments in which I could succeed. And all of that has really influenced my career path. I'm very proud to be leading HHMI today. I think this organization can influence culture change in positive ways and break down barriers to success in science. And this is what I'm going to turn to now. This slide shows an overview of programs administered by our science and science education departments. And as you can see, they function across different career stages. Our undergraduate programs are largely institutional award programs. They're indicated by these blue triangles. And we have many programs and initiatives indicated by these stars that are focused on diversity and inclusion in the life sciences. And these programs overall support the research, education, and training of undergraduates, of doctoral students and their mentors, and of early career scientists from diverse backgrounds and diverse identities. I also want to say that to the extent possible, the development and running of these programs has been informed by rigorous research on effective interventions. And I'm referring here to multiple National Academy studies, some of which have been referred to by others, and also numerous studies supported by the NIH and NSF that were dedicated to identifying the factors associated with how researchers successfully advance in STEM. And so our newest science education initiative that was just launched this month is called Driving Change, and it will award grants to research universities to create their own version of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County's Meyerhoff Scholars Program, in addition to improving the STEM learning environment that are experienced by all students at a given university. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the Meyerhoff program, it was initiated to increase retention and academic performance of historically underrepresented minority undergraduates in STEM, with the goal of preparing these undergraduates for success in graduate and professional programs. The program was started by UMBC President Freeman Hrabowski 30 years ago now, with support from Robert and Jane Meyerhoff, and HHMI began supporting the program in the 1990s. Many of these Meyerhoff scholars do summer research in HHMI investigator labs. So UMBC is, of course, a public research university with inclusive excellence as a foundational value of their community. And what has made Meyerhoff successful has been the commitment of all involved, from students to faculty to administrators, to improving the culture in which students are trained. And this includes a commitment to community building, faculty involvement in training and workshops, and a focus on pedagogical practices that differentially affect historically underrepresented groups in STEM. And so in the first 26 years of the Meyerhoff Scholars Program, over 80% of the nearly 900 minority students who participated in the program earned science or engineering bachelor's degrees. And even more remarkably, 3/4 of those graduates went on to graduate and professional programs in STEM. And amazingly, you may know UMBC is now the top undergraduate school of origin for African American MD, PhD recipients in the United States. And it's the second-ranked school of origin of African American STEM PhD recipients behind Howard University. So this is a remarkable transformation over a 30-year period. And as I mentioned, our new program, Driving Change, will partner with UMBC to award grants to research universities to create their own version of the Meyerhoff Scholars Program. So a little bit more about the Driving Change initiative. The objective of the program is to drive genuine and lasting culture change on university campuses, so undergraduates from all backgrounds, but particularly those who belong to historically excluded groups, will excel in STEM and graduate from college well prepared to pursue advanced degrees and eventually assume leadership roles in STEM. So the institutions that are eligible are doctoral granting universities that offer 4-year baccalaureate degrees in one or more of the STEM disciplines. This is more than 255 colleges and universities. And we expect to award up to 6 grants to universities. And the grants are for about $500,000 per year for 5 years. And so driving change is intended to encourage a comprehensive approach to culture change with 3 interlocking elements. The first element focuses on the development of a coherent set of activities that provide a framework to support student success in STEM. And this is where the institutions create their own version of the Meyerhoff program, committing to achieve the outcomes and honoring the underlying values of each of the Meyerhoff components. The second element focuses on creating a more inclusive STEM learning environment that affects all STEM students at the university. And what we're doing here that's a little different from what's been done before is that each campus that plans to submit a proposal will examine its current environment through a self-study. And the findings of this self-study will then identify practices and behaviors that should change in order to achieve greater inclusivity in the learning environment for all students, but especially those who are from groups historically excluded from STEM. And finally, the third element reaches beyond the individual grantee university by convening a learning community of institutions that are engaged in this driving change initiative. This learning community will meet regularly at HHMI through the 5 years of the initiative to share their aspirations, their experiences, and their progress. These grants are intended to provide startup funds to assist the university as it launches its driving change program, and the university will then carefully assess its progress, evaluate its program, and initiate strategies that will sustain progress beyond just the duration of this HHMI grant. So next, I'd like to talk to you about the Inclusive Excellence Initiative. This is a grant program that challenges colleges and universities to identify institutional barriers to diversity and inclusion in STEM and work with faculty to examine and change campus cultures. So the program started in 2017. We selected over the past 2 years 57 schools that represent a mixture of institution types as shown on this map, from baccalaureate colleges to doctoral universities. 14 of the schools selected specifically focus on serving students from underrepresented groups, and these are indicated by the pins with the circle. And so the schools are expected to identify opportunities to build campus capacity for inclusion of students from diverse backgrounds, to engage in the process of culture change, experimenting with approaches from faculty learning to things like revising introductory science curricula. And finally, to reflect on the impact of their efforts, discover areas to improve, and share results with the learning community that we've built of Inclusive Excellence awardees. So the program team, which is led by David Asai in our Science Education Department, has really built on what they've learned from this Inclusive Excellence community to shape this third competition. So we've already had 2, and the third is referred to as IE3. And in addition to the emphasis on faculty development that I referred to previously, the schools in IE3 will each focus on one of 3 challenges: evaluating effective and inclusive teaching, improving the introductory science experience, or forming effective partnerships between 2- and 4-year institutions. And because we want to emphasize sustainability, the schools will develop a roadmap for how they will translate the grant-supported activities into lasting changes at their universities. We've also enlisted the help of the Association of American Colleges and Universities, who's stood up an Inclusive Excellence Commission that's involved in evaluating the outcomes of the program and helping disseminate what information has been learned. So these two programs, Driving Change and Inclusive Excellence, both of them seek to catalyze lasting institutional culture change. But the two initiatives are distinct in their approaches. As I described, Driving Change focuses on research universities to pursue this dual strategy that is essentially to adapt a prescribed student-centered model. So this is a support the individual type of model. This is the adaptation of the Meyerhoff component. It combines that with efforts to improve the STEM learning environment experienced by all students. And in contrast, the Inclusive Excellence encourages a wide variety of institution types to address the challenge of increasing institutional capacity for inclusion by examining policies, practices, and behaviors of faculty and staff. And in that context of examining the behavior of faculty and staff, I want to point out that changing behavior is really one of the primary ways that we can influence culture. You know, I can talk about HHMI's values as an organization and the shared values of our leadership, our employees, and our grantees. But I've learned that values don't drive culture, behavior does. And research shows this. So as I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't be here today without outstanding mentors whose behavior really influenced me. And I'm not just talking about the advisors I had when I was a student. When I was a junior faculty member at UCSF, the senior faculty established an environment that really made a significant imprint on me, one in which emphasis was placed on making contributions to the community and on supporting other members of the community. So the behavior of the senior faculty didn't just influence me. It was responsible for creating the culture in which I thrived. So I want to now turn to talk about our fellowship programs that support individual scientists from diverse backgrounds at the graduate and postgraduate levels. But what I want to do in doing this is to share with you just the elements of those programs that are geared towards influencing behavior through professional development and support from mentors. So the first thing I'll talk about is our Gilliam Fellowships for Advanced Study program. This program started in 2005. It's named for James Gilliam Jr., one of HHMI's charter trustees, who really spent a lifetime fostering diversity and opportunity in education and science. And so the goal of the Gilliam Fellowship program is to increase diversity among scientists who are prepared to assume leadership roles in science, particularly as college and university faculty. This fellowship program is open to doctoral advisor student pairs, and this is through nomination only by an HHMI designated institutional representative at a university or college. These fellows are all from groups recognized in the US as underrepresented in the sciences, and this fellowship funds people basically in the second half of their PhD training. So the thesis advisor must demonstrate commitment to developing outstanding young scientists, especially those from underrepresented groups. And for the past few years, and this is the feature I want to focus on, the mentors are required to complete 30 hours of inclusion and diversity training per year through a combination of virtual online exercises and 2 in-person workshops. And this is what I want to tell you a little bit about. So the Gilliam Mentor Workshop facilitators, who are from University of Wisconsin Center for the Improvement of Mentored Experiences in Research, or CIMR, lead sessions that are related to topics such as navigating imposter syndrome, reducing stereotype threat and microaggressions, fostering mentees' cultural resilience, promoting mentee research self-efficacy, and effective communication, especially as it relates to addressing diversity. And so not only is the training intended to raise awareness of the ways in which cultural dynamics impact research teams and the mentoring relationships within those teams, it's also intended to provide concrete strategies for enhancing mentor-mentee relationships. And the workshops allow the mentors to share their experiences and to build community. After the second in-person workshop, the mentors self-report what they've done at their institutions, and they share what seems to be working and what doesn't. And so we're using what we've learned from all of this to inform new efforts to develop and support a mentoring training program for the Hannah H. Gray Fellows Program, which is for early career scientists. So Hannah Gray was also one of HHMI's original trustees, and she was really a visionary for the organization who influenced significant changes to our process for selecting scientists. She was also one of the first female presidents of a major research university, the University of Chicago. We developed this Hannah Gray Fellowship Program when I was Chief Scientific Officer at HHMI to provide support for scientists from historically underrepresented groups in STEM during what is really a very challenging period in their careers, and that is the transition from PhD, where you heard half the PhDs in the life sciences are given to women, to through the first part of their junior faculty position. And so the goal of this program is to recruit and retain emerging scientists who are from groups underrepresented in the biomedical and life sciences, including those from disadvantaged backgrounds. The program is open to groups underrepresented in the life sciences who have a PhD and or an MD, and who have accepted to join a laboratory as a postdoctoral researcher at a research institution located in the US. So this fellowship is for people right at the end of graduate school or who have just started a postdoctoral training period. The award provides up to 8 years of support, up to 4 years as a postdoctoral researcher and 4 years as an independent faculty member. It has a lot of interesting features that I don't have time to go over, but I'm happy to talk about offline. I think two of the more important ones are that the fellows have complete freedom to change their research focus during the duration of the award. And we also allow breaks in the continuity of funding for life events, including the birth of a child, but also other types of life events. So we build flexibility into the fellowship and also flexible funding that can be used by the fellows for things like childcare, but also professional development or other such things. So the Hannah Gray mentors are invited to attend one HHMI scientific meeting with the fellow, and they participate in a mentor training workshop at HHMI. And we're really thinking carefully about this mentor training to ensure that we're supporting and influencing the behaviors of the mentors in positive ways. We're looking to lessons learned from this Gilliam program to develop effective and sustainable interventions to foster environments that maximize the fellows' potential for success. And our hope is that since we also support these fellows through the first part of their faculty position, we hope that this award will have a catalytic effect on future generations. We hope the fellows will pay forward the lessons that they learned as postdocs to become good mentors themselves and to establish healthy and inclusive environments in their own labs as faculty members. And finally, the other thing I should mention is that many of the Hannah Gray Fellows, Gilliam Fellows, and Meyerhoff Scholars are working in HHMI labs. And indeed, our investigators, who are HHMI employees, have an outsized influence on training the next generation of scientists. And what I mean by this is that 2/3 of the postdocs from HHMI labs go on to positions in academia, half of them as independent group leaders, and this is perhaps the most remarkable thing. About 40% of the assistant and associate professors in the top life sciences departments, top 20 life sciences departments, have trained in HHMI labs. And I bring this up because we have tremendous opportunity at HHMI to influence research environments for the better. We believe we can catalyze long-term change toward more diverse and inclusive lab environments by shifting the behaviors of our scientists who are our employees through sustainable interventions like mentor training. And we hope the influence that these changes they'll be carried on to future as the students leave these labs and go on to their own careers. And so finally, towards that effort, we've partnered with researchers from the National Center for Professional and Research Ethics at the University of Illinois to develop a curriculum that will support our scientists in fostering a culture in their labs that gives everyone the opportunity to achieve the highest levels of excellence and productivity. The curriculum will help our scientists develop specific strategies and behaviors for supporting inclusive and equitable environments that are on campuses that are increasingly diverse. And so the curriculum will cover ethical, laboratory, and scientific practices, improving cultural competence, helping researchers to work together effectively. And we're calling this Labs That Work for Everyone. We're working with the NCPRE now to develop the curriculum, and we plan to pilot 2 modules. There will likely be a dozen modules in the end, but we plan to pilot 2 modules in 2021. And so I'll end by returning to this slide and saying, am I optimistic we can fix the environment? And I would say yes. And what makes me feel optimistic and what motivates me to see opportunities and not just barriers is that change is happening. I think we can see and feel it. But even though change is happening and we're moving in the right direction, I think we all realize we have a long way to go. And no single institution is going to have the solution. But I think together, by sharing with one another what works and what doesn't work, things will continue to change. The other thing I want to leave you with is that it's not up to individuals to learn how to overcome barriers. That may be partly important, but it's equally important for all of us to seize the opportunities to break down these barriers in our culture. And we have to recognize that financial support is not enough. We need interventions that involve and empower individuals and institutions to ensure that the culture of science is healthy and inclusive for all. So I'll stop there, and happy at the end afterwards to take any questions.